Welcome to The Landlady Listens. The podcast where we talk all things real estate, development, and the mindset it takes to build your dream life. Okay, hey guys. It's Landlady. I'm your host, Meg Hayden, real estate broker, new construction expert, and a believer in making big visions into a reality. So if you're ready to build it, dream it, and live it, let's dive in. Okay, hey guys, it is Meg Hayden. We're on the podcast today, The Landlady Listens. I know we're all super interested in wealth planning and wealth preservation. That is what we're going to talk about today. And we are super excited to have my two guests. By the way, my name is Meg Hayden. I am a real estate broker, development strategist, and mom of two. So I'm joined today with Josh and Matt. If you guys would love to introduce yourselves, go ahead.
Thank you, Meg, for having us on. So my name is Josh Gorra, founder of Gorra Financial Group with One America Securities. But especially the last couple of days have been an interesting one. But wealth preservation and helping folks navigate all the different questions and concerns they have.
And I'm attorney Matt Fabisch. I have an office in Pawtucket and an office in Bristol, Rhode Island. We focus on estate planning and probate practice, and we're here to help guide clients through that end of life phase and to make sure that that their assets during life are as secure as can be from a legal standpoint, and to figure out the best approach to transition that wealth to the next generation.
That's awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here. So let's talk about first wealth planning and retirement approach.
So building liquidity now is important, right? A lot of folks focus on retirement planning and or building assets, but the reality is you have to have fun now and plan for the future. So we help a lot of different folks understand the importance of not just saving for tomorrow, canceling cable, nowadays Netflix, Hulu, one of the 19 different subscriptions, right? But it's helping them understand there's definitely a balance of enjoying money now, lifestyle now with the family, and or planning for the future. And how you do that is different for everybody. So perfect example, you have a growing family that's 25, just bought a house, right? Or early 30s.
It's like 35 now for the average.
Tell them Gen X / millennial, right? But yeah, right, 30, 35 today, maybe 40. And they're it's overwhelming, right? They're buying a house, they're getting pre-approved. How much life insurance do I need? What do I contribute to my 401k? And then, oh, by the way, I have to get this thing called a will, right? Like, who do I talk to and how does that work? And so everything from that to the average clients that we work with, which is about 61 to 62 years old, like, I've worked all my life and amassed this wealth. What do I do with it? And how do I protect it or play defense in a time that's very volatile like this week? So nothing's ever a boring moment. There's always a lot of questions and concerns, but our job is to really just listen and figure out what's the best solution.
So what are the conversations you're having this week? I
know. It's good. It's not bad. The great part is if you can explain the different options that people have and different investment vehicles, it makes it a lot easier. Where 20 years ago when I started doing this in this business, there wasn't half of the products you have today. So for example, you have products that now you pay 0 fee and you have the downside protection, meaning in typical markets, if you don't have any buffer and or downside protection, and you lose, whatever you lose, right? So some of these newer products you can invest in give you all the upside, but protect your downside, and at no fee. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, very different game. So that's one of the examples, but there's also, what do I do to plan for if I don't wake up tomorrow? What happens to my family? What happens to their lifestyle? What happens to their income? So there's a lot of different pieces that happen, and it's a process. It's not an event, right? So it's hard to take all that and give it to you in 2 minutes, but hopefully that helps.
Tell me a little bit about our wealth preservation that we have.
Well, so I think just like Josh, there's a wide spectrum of clients and life stages that we need to consider when we're looking at wealth preservation. So If that younger family is coming to us, we're generally just looking at things like making sure that there's a guardian in place through a will. We're looking at things like what is the financial picture, what's going to be needed. If one of the parents should pass away, or if one of the parents should become incapacitated, what does that structure look like? What wealth advisors do we need to refer to access financial products that can help to make sure that whatever is lost from an income standpoint is going to be there in some way so that the family doesn't suffer from a loss in standard of living. And then, they progress a little bit through the life cycle. Maybe their kids are now moving out into college. What do they need to do, or how are they going to structure things to make sure that their kids are going to be in a position so that maybe they can buy a house at 25. Maybe there's some financial assistance that's available for them. Maybe we can look at equity from their own property or from their other savings and investment vehicles. And then we get later into the life cycle still, and okay, now mom and dad are looking at retirement and the prospect of passing away, and how are we going to secure those assets for the next generation, while again continuing to make sure that they do have access to the funds that they want or need to have access to. So we'll look at depending on what their life savings have looked like and what their financial picture looks like. We're either at that point going to be talking about the possibility of doing some Medicaid asset protection planning, or we're going to be looking at trying to, and really this is a conversation, if they've had greater financial success through life, it's a conversation that should start, in my view, a little bit earlier. So the typical nursing home or Medicaid asset protection planning client, we're looking at usually between age 65 and 70. For people who have, I would say, north of 1 to 1.5 million in assets, then we're going to be hoping to have that conversation starting around age 50 or 55. And we're going to talk to them about what an estate tax is going to look like in Rhode Island. And depending on how successful they've been in accumulating wealth, whether there are federal estate tax concerns that we need to look at to try and segment off portions of that wealth off of their estate tax, so that they are not in a position where they're owing either federal or state estate tax. And we have various trust vehicles that we can use to do that, and we have various approaches that we can collaborate with financial planners and other financial professionals to make sure that that's the
Tell
case.
us a little bit more about the estate tax.
So, in Rhode Island, we have an estate tax that is lower than the federal threshold. Right now, the federal threshold is, I think it's 12.46. So if you, as a couple, are making basically less than $24 million, you don't have to worry about it, or have a net asset value of less than $24 million. That said, there's, that threshold right now is set to sunset at the end of next year. So it'll sunset back to the $5 million threshold. And depending on what happens with future Congresses, that number could reset to 5 million, it could reset to, or it could be adjusted to a lower amount.
Wait, so you're saying that if now it's now at $24 million, that you would not have to pay, or you would have to pay the estate tax, but now
Federal estate tax.
But now it's going to go down to 5 million.
If Congress doesn't extend that estate tax exemption, yes, it will go down to 5 million.
Yeah, and that's for the married, right? So it'd be 10 million or 24 for the couple. So if they're worth, for example, 30 million, 6 million is going to be for federal taxes for the beneficiaries.
Yeah, that's a high tax rate on the federal estate tax. So that's for couples that are concerned about that, or for individuals who are concerned about that and fall into that category. Now is an important time to engage in that type of planning. But in Rhode Island, many more people are concerned about the state estate tax, and that's going to trigger in somewhere around 1.8 million.
Which is not a lot. Right?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot when you consider people have their family homes, they have their 401ks. All of these,
Kentucky is $1 million.
Exactly. All of these assets are going to combine together, and that's the state is going to look at all of the assets that you have in your gross estate, and that's what the estate tax is going to trigger off of. So many people, when they realize that they have real estate, that they have retirement investment vehicles, qualified money, they're at or near that threshold.
And what is the estate tax for Rhode Island?
It's graduated, so it's not a fixed rate. As the net assets in the estate go up, the amount of tax that you pay it goes up. But it's certainly a consideration and a concern, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm at 1.5, say, but they have, if they're meeting at age 50 or at 55 and they're at 1.5, then they've got the remaining, oftentimes most powerful earning years of their career ahead of them. And depending on what they spend, depending on how they make investments, they're going to surpass that 1.8 million threshold pretty quickly.
So what are some of the ways that you can protect that?
Well, one of the ways that we will often work with those types of clients, we'll use a number of strategies. One strategy is a gifting strategy. So depending on what the financial profile looks like, what their assets look like, they can work to gift out certain assets. They could gift a piece of real estate. They could gift, pure financial accounts. Typically, as long as that has been out of their name within 3 years, then that's not going to count against their gross assets for the estate tax in Rhode Island. Beyond that, though, there are what are called irrevocable life insurance trusts, and that's where we might set up a life insurance trust, and that ownership of that life insurance policy is going to go into a name other than the individuals, but it's going to name the beneficiaries that they would otherwise have named. They'll be able to use money from that account to pay for that life insurance policy, and they're going to go to somebody like Josh to get access to a policy that they're going to then be able to keep separate and apart from their gross estate. So it's a fantastic way to pass money on and not have tax consequences for it.
Can you talk more about that, Josh?
Yeah, no, and I love that. Thank you for bringing that up, Matt. So, and it's a powerful strategy because you have a third party entity. So you have another Social Security, another federal tax ID number that owns that policy. So it takes it out of your estate. So if you have a property that's worth $1 million, you have a 401k worth $1 million, you're already over that threshold. So if you add another policy to that, which happens a lot, right? I'm sure, Matt, you can attest to that.
Absolutely.
So if folks don't know that, sadly, if they have a $3 million policy, now they're worth $5 million in the eyes of the state. That's tax, the federal tax, whatever the case is. But if you have the ILIT and or the life insurance, the irrevocable life insurance trust, you put the policy inside that trust, and then the beneficiaries get the money or proceeds from that.
Is that also protected then if you go to like a nursing home or what have you?
Timing depending, yeah.
Right. And it's also going to pass on creditor protection to the beneficiaries, right? So because it's in an irrevocable trust, the beneficiaries, typically we're going to include things like spendthrift provisions, so that if the beneficiaries are subject to divorce proceedings, or if they get into a car accident and it exceeds the available insurance to cover that accident, there's going to be debtor-creditor protection that's built into that. So that money, you can be assured, is going to go to your beneficiaries.
So interesting.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, that could be heavy depending on the audience and whoever's going to listen to this stuff. But I would say that you don't have to. One of the biggest preconceived notions is that you have to be worth $10 million to talk to Matt, or talk to myself, or talk to people in our professions, and that's just not true. So I work with everything from teachers to janitors to CEOs to everything in between. And it's one of the best ways to create wealth is to have life insurance. It's the only vehicle on God's green earth that is tax-free at death. So it's estate tax-free. It's not ordinary. It's ordinary income tax-free, but depending on how you structure it, based on our prior conversation, then it could also be estate tax-free. But it has to be designed correctly. And so that's why a lot of the folks, there's a lot of professionals in our business. But there's a reason why 1 out of 100 make it 5 years. There's a reason why,
It's like realtors.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I can only imagine, right? And or attorneys, right? So there's a reason why you work with a team of professionals, and why I have so much gray hair at 42. I look like I'm 62, depending on the day. But I love what I do. And so I'm fortunate we have a team of professionals at One America and or the different, 50 other companies we work with. But locally, the advisors, the professionals I work with, the men and women that we partner up with, makes a huge difference in the community. So we're approachable. It's not just, oh, I don't have any money, I'm not going to invest. It's a matter of, let's figure out the right solution for you. And that's why the tagline is providing financial literacy, explaining it so that people understand it.
So something we had talked about too was right now there's a lot of sellers who are maybe older and they're interested in selling their properties. And typically when you own a ton of property and you have investment properties, you're able to do what's called a 1031 exchange. 1031 exchange allows you to buy more real estate tax-free and defer tax payments. But again, a lot of the investors that I work with, they're like, well, I don't want to buy anymore. Everything's too expensive.
They just or time past them. If they're in their 60s, I highly doubt they want to manage properties.
They don't.
Right.
Yeah. So something that we had talked about, Josh, was one of the 1030 exchange funds that you guys have available. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about that.
So that's a great point. There's a few different strategies. And so owning property myself in the past, 1031 exchanges, you have about 90 to 120 days, if I remember correctly. So
180.
180?
Yeah.
So they give you that much now. Okay, so 180 days to identify and isolate property that you're going to then put the proceeds. However, if you don't do that, then it's taxable and everything else. With the funds that we have access to, you can actually do what's called a 1031 exchange into those funds and avoid taxes, or a portion of it, depending on how it's funded.
Do those funds satisfy the like requirement?
There's actually one that I know of, and I forget the name, it's Blue Rock something, mutual fund, but I'll look up and give it to you. They actually have a fund that will accept those funds.
Okay.
They accept the funds because they are investing in real estate. So yeah. I think it's a great approach for people who are older who want to take the time. They want to leverage the current market,
yeah.
cash out, and still be able to invest in the 1031 exchange. And with the 1031 exchange, you can take a partial payment of the property. So let's say you sell it for $1 million. And you want $200,000, you're going to be taxed on that $200,000, but you could put the $800,000 into something like the 1031 exchange, where it's a fund, so you don't have to manage a property anymore or deal with tenants, but it's a great way, I think, an option. Obviously, everyone has to weigh out their options, but I think it's a really wonderful thought.
So one of the challenges, though, that happens when clients look at 1030 exchanges is they will struggle to meet the like-kind requirement, right? So they'll have a piece of commercial real estate and they'll want to buy a residential piece of real estate. And depending on how strict you want to get with your interpretation of the IRS regulations, that's not permitted because you have to stay within the same type of real estate. So it's a nice sort of safety valve, I think, as you're getting closer to that time when all of the money is going to be taxed, to be able to flip it over into something where they'll be able to satisfy that requirement. You'll be able to preserve the taxes on it. Another strategy that I absolutely love with 1031 exchanges is a lot of people don't realize this, but you can do the exchange and also reside in the property. If it's a residential piece of property, you can do the exchange and then reside in the property. And you can get both the tax-free initial investment that came from your prior piece of property, and you can get the residential exclusion on the capital gain. So if you're a single individual and you've had less than $250,000 in capital gain on that property, you can exclude the entirety of the capital gain. You just have to satisfy the requirement of having lived in it for 2 out of the last 5 years. So a lot of times what folks will do is they'll do the 1031 exchange, and then they'll, at the end of that time when they want to take it out of their investment portfolio, they'll reside in it and take the step up in basis that way, exclude it, and they're golden.
It's crazy. It's interesting.
There's a lot that you can do. I mean, it comes down to the suitability of the investor, right? In real estate and our business, any business, you have to do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like real estate in general, it's all about timing. But I think the most important part that I want all the listeners to take away from today's episode is really about talking to professionals about planning for the future, because I feel like if you don't have a goal in mind, then you don't even know what you need to do or what options are even available or out there. So I wanted to ask, you were talking about just liquidity now. Did you want to talk a little bit about liquidity now?
Yes, I'd love to. So liquidity means a lot of different things to different people, right? So bank accounts are typically what people think about. I would say that money markets are not utilized as much. There's brokerage accounts.
What's a money market?
So a money market is just an account. You go to bankrate.com. You can go to any bank locally and say, I want a money market. You have to put a certain amount of money in, and it's liquid, but you have to maintain a certain amount of money in that fund or in that bank account. Where with brokerage accounts, think of like an investable account that's liquid, but it's money going to work, right? So it's attached to something in your bank account. You can transfer money whenever you feel like it, but you have a professional managing it for you and or working together with you. That way the money's not just sitting there, right? And money market funds several years back were doing really well, right? And now not so much. So it just depends.
What about cash value insurance? Do you use that for liquidity?
We do. So that's a great point. So life insurance is not just for death insurance. There's a lot of living benefits, and building cash value is one of them. So building equity within your life insurance policy that you can use while you're alive and or supplement retirement. So we're seeing a lot of that in the last 6-7 years. It's a good hedge against everything else. But it's also one of the ones that doesn't go against FAFSA or financial aid, if you remember, college and all those things. So if you have, fun fact, if you have money in life insurance that's permanent and or annuities, it doesn't go against that. So everything else does. So there's a lot of benefits. You can build liquidity within life insurance, brokerage accounts, money market accounts. But I mean, it'd be here forever. There's probably about 10 different ways you could do it. But again, it depends on the investor.
Can you guys just tell us, our listeners, just a little bit more about the life insurance?
In particular,
if people want to, if they haven't thought about it, done it yet, what do they need to think about?
Sure.
When looking for a policy.
So it's a great question, Meg. I mean, there's a lot of different policies. The main things I would ask someone is say, look, if you care about the people that, your family, if you care about the income they depend on, then you should 100% look into it because it's going to benefit your family, right? That's the obvious one. The other one is you want to protect insurability as early as you are because the older someone gets, right, we have two things working against us. Age, right, and our health. We don't know what's going to happen with our health. We could be 20 years ago, I'm not the same guy, right? And every 20, it's harder, right?
It's a lot harder. I can speak from personal experience. It's a lot harder.
And so my kids, as soon as they were born, 30 days, 60 days, they got the Social Security card. Right away, I was able to get them policies and protect their insurability. What does that mean? It means that when they get older, they'll never have to worry about applying, going through that process, looking for something. It's already paid off. It'll be done.
So you're saying that you've already purchased the policies for your children?
Correct.
And then you have them on yourself?
Correct. So yes, and that's a great point. So the parents have to have 2 times the amount minimum of any children. So in other words, if somebody calls me and says, Josh, I heard about this great concept on Meg's podcast, we're talking about it, how do I get it for my kids to start saving some money for them and helping them in the future, right? Say, great, I'm glad you want to do that, but you have to get it for yourself as well. So the parents, for example, if they have $1 million, the kids can get no more than 500. If they have 2 million, no more than 1 million, right? So it can't be zero for the parent. The kids can't be worth more than the parents, right? And that's just, you would think it's common sense, but it's not. But it's a great tool that a lot of people underutilize, right? And so for the last 21 years, I could tell you stories where the kids were 2 or 3 years old. Now I go back to the house and they're 20-something years old, right? It's pretty wild. And seeing the trajectory of how they've accomplished savings and gone to college and everything else. But
so you said there's benefits while being alive. Can you talk a little bit about those benefits?
So one of the benefits is that you build cash with equity, so you have access to that capital to buying real estate, similar to what I did many years ago. You can pull the money out and don't pay taxes on it. You pull it out as cost basis and or what you put in, you can take out. But you can also borrow as a loan against the policy so that you avoid taxes. So that's one of the benefits. The other benefit is that it doesn't cancel. As long as you pay the premium, it stays in place for your entire life. So you never have to worry about going through another exam and all those other things that people worry about. But one of the biggest things that we haven't even mentioned is that how much can they get? One of the questions we get all the time is how much can I get? You can ask for whatever you want, but there has to be 20 times income and or any other liabilities they have. So if they have mortgages, if they're worried about college planning, if they're worried in the event of, whatever the case is, but it has to be based on earned income for the most part.
Awesome. So I was listening today to some woman on Instagram and just talking about the current market, and she was saying, and I don't know what your thoughts are about this, but she was saying to start investing in not necessarily diversifying your funds outside of the United States on different investments potentially. Thoughts about that?
So today specifically, I would say be careful. A lot of risk. But again, and this is not financial advice, but I would say it depends on the investor and what they're trying to accomplish. If you're looking to diversify, by definition, you have to look outside the domestic U.S., right? Because you want to look outside and get a different return or different perspective. But it's considered speculative depending on who you're talking to, right? So someone in their 60s, probably not going to look in that direction. If they're in their 20s, they have a longer time horizon and or in layman's terms, they have a longer window of time and opportunity to grow those assets, right? So can it be a good investment? Sure. I don't know if I'd go buy an Airbnb in certain countries, but it's all relative.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being on the show. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about that I missed?
I think I wanted to touch upon the point that you made about working with professionals generally, right? And just bring it back to the fact that I know that you're a real estate agent, and a lot of times people will, for example, I've had a recent probate case where we were trying to market a property. The property was very challenging to market, and bringing in a professional like a real estate agent is always going to be the better option. You're gonna think, or the clients are gonna say, "Oh, we're gonna spend all this money on a commission." The real estate agent is going to get so much more exposure for that property, and the real estate agent is going to know the professional channels to be able to bring real value to those, to those types of cases. So
for sure. And Matt just sent me. I mean, one of his clients, the family had a loss. The father had passed away. So. But it's true, having a professional, I mean, not only do, everyone says, oh, well, you just listed on MLS. I don't just list it on MLS. I do.
Anybody who's seen your stuff knows you don't just list on MLS.
No, and I think that's really, being on camera and filming, that's how people are viewing a property. They're viewing it from their homes, they're viewing it from their beds, and so making sure, like, what's really great about my company here is we have an in-house videographer. We are actually here in our podcast room, but we're able to really see, you're able to see and market the property entirely. So the other thing that we do is not only do we sit down with the families, and obviously it's such a hard time for the families, but we sit down, and what I also do is it's so important to have a net sheet. So I tell the clients, I say, hey, listen, this is the price we're going to put it at. I give them a range, like 350 to 400, so that at the bottom of everything exactly how much you're going to walk away with. And I think that's so important because people you don't want an oops, we were off 20 grand, So I give them, I'm serious, but that happens all the time. I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time. I just won't. I can't lie to people and say, hey, it's gonna be $450,000 when it only sells for like $375,000. So for me, what I do is I sit down with them, we do a net sheet, and I show them exactly how much they're gonna walk away with. But on the back end, what we also do is I email every single agent that I email like 2,000 agents. So not only are they getting hey, this is just listed. It's, hey, we have open house Saturday, Sunday, Friday, hey, tomorrow the open houses are. Saturday they're getting an email, hey, we're doing it on Sunday. So it's really about making sure that you're in front of people like as many times as possible, because just listing it on the MLS doesn't mean that any buyer's agent is necessarily looking for their clients every day. So I make sure I get it in front of them, and I actually, for properties that are a little stale, I direct message them as well, like text. That, hey, this is a client that you have that might be looking for this 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom in Rumsford, which we have listed for $395. But it's true. It's like you really have to be able to market the property and get in front of as many people as many times as possible. And I sell stuff that way all the time.
Yeah.
People reach out to me. They're like, oh, I just saw this on Facebook or whatever. But the videos are so important, because each video, from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok to LinkedIn to YouTube, which is where I put all my videos, each one of them is getting from 500 to 1,000 views.
Yeah.
So you're getting 5,000 views that you wouldn't normally get.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
And that's out to the public. And then the other thing that you just said was, the professionals to reach out to. As a professional, who the professionals are to reach out to, who might be looking for that type of property or that type of investment, which nobody at home could ever even hope to replicate, right? Like if they wanted to try and post videos and whatever, try and market their property, they're never going to have those professional connections that you've built up over years of experience.
Yeah, and you're also just going to make more money when you're working with someone who really gives a shit.
Yeah.
And it's true, because for me, it's not just for me.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of people they'll go out there and they'll just get the listing, and I'm like, no, we have a job to complete. I'm not just gonna get the listing and tell somebody, oh, there's unicorns. And no, because especially for real estate, everyone's moving on.
Yeah.
To a new part of their life.
Yeah.
And it's really important to know exactly how much they're going to walk away with, whether it's a divorce or a death or what have you. You are moving on to a new part of your life, and you need to know exactly, bottom line, what you're working with.
By the way, good segue real quick. QDROs, if you have somebody gets divorced, they can actually, QDROs are just a law that you can actually separate retirement vehicles so that the other party gets half of the monies in a 401k or an IRA, whatever the case is, but they don't pay any penalties or taxes for separating the account. So husband and wife, for example, you got a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home husband or whatever the case is, they can separate those assets so that somebody gets a portion of those assets without paying penalties or fees. This will defer taxes to a later date, but it's something that a lot of people are not aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an important tool.
So, it's interesting. I'm glad you actually brought that up. So when you go to the attorney to split up the assets, there will be times that the other party will say, well, we'll just do it ourselves. Does it have to, it's the best idea is to go through.
I mean, I'd always recommend working, like to Matt's point, work with a professional, work with an attorney, because you don't know, again, every situation is different. God forbid, if someone gets divorced, you think they do the right thing, but it's always best to go through a professional, right?
Even within the legal field, right? There's different areas of specialization. Depending on your state bar, you may or may not be able to say, yes, I'm a specialist in this area or that area. But we have a divorce lawyer that I work very closely with. I don't handle divorce matters in my office at all. We deal with the estate planning that follows a divorce. We deal with if there's something that needs to be untangled from an estate planning standpoint through the divorce, and both counsel are in agreement with it, then we can work with the couple to try and get that done. But divorce and custody, real estate, estate planning, personal injury, criminal law, immigration, these are all different areas of law, and you really should try and find a focused professional.
Oh, 100%. There's so many times, even in real estate, where they're like, oh, we'll just go with our attorney. And I'm like, do they do real estate?
Right.
Because it's just
Same.
it's not the same. And so it's super important to find people that specialize in whatever it is you're looking for in that practice, that law, for sure. So my last question for you guys is, what book are you currently reading or you would recommend?
There's a lot.
Most recently, I've been, ironically, we were discussing before the podcast about Alex Hormozy. I have a copy of his $100 million offers on my car dashboard that I've been
Looking at.
looking through. Yeah, trying to make the process as easy for clients to understand the value that we provide and then to make an informed choice about the best way that we can serve them. So if you need assistance with estate planning matters, you can find us on Instagram at estate planning law, at estate planning law, or fabischlaw.com, and we're happy to assist with any of those types of questions.
Cool, thank you. What
So-
about you? What's your book?
So I just finished Main Street Millionaires, Cody Sanchez.
Oh, love her.
So I'm a big fan. She was formerly in my business, so I'm like, oh, what's she doing now? And I follow a lot of the stuff she's doing. But the book highlights a lot of boring businesses, quote unquote. And for me, it gave me insight to, okay, well, laundromats, liquor stores, car washes, a bunch of other businesses.
I'm selling a laundromat right now. I just got it under contract.
I love
Did you?
laundromats.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
should talk. But there's a lot of different plans where, for example, if they have existing retirement plans, 401ks, simple IRAs, whatever the case is, which, by the way, side note, realtors, all your realtor friends and yourself should look into, or at least get the information on IRAs, SEPs, simples, how they work and how they help your business. But yeah, Cody Sanchez, huge fan of what she's doing and the movement behind the old ideology of I have to go to school, get a career, and that's all good. There's nothing wrong with that, because clearly she started that path. But now on the path she's on now, I've bought and sold many businesses over the years, even though I'm simultaneously in this business, I can definitely relate. So I highly recommend it.
Love that. And where can everybody find you?
So on social, GorraFinancialGroup.com, that's our website, at Gorra Financial Group on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And we're working on some other special projects right now, which will be released soon. We just launched our latest commercial. We're at the Regency Plaza in Providence, but we have a satellite office in Boston. But we're a big fan of hybrid work. So if other advisors, other financial professionals are looking to move and or have more autonomy, more freedom, more options for their clients, happy to connect.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Thank you for today's show of The Landlady Listens, where we turn vision into reality. Remember, success starts in your mind before it ever shows up in your life. So keep believing, keep building, and most importantly, keep taking action. And until next time, trust the process, bet on yourself, and go create the life that you deserve. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show with someone who needs to hear it. My name's Meg Hayden. You can give me a call, real estate broker, 609-598-2232. Thanks. That's it for today's episode of The Landlady, where we turn your vision into a reality. Remember, success starts in your mind before it ever shows up in your life. Keep believing, keep building, and more importantly, keep taking action. And until next time, trust the process, bet on yourself, and go create the life that you deserve. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Love you.